It was early morning in Ilorin, and the sun was just starting to rise over Ejigbo Market. The vendors were setting up their stalls, while the sound of roosters echoed in the distance. But Mariam, a girl with quick hands and quicker feet, had other plans. She lurked near the market's entrance, her eyes scanning people passing by. "Today must be the day," she muttered under her breath, clutching her beat-up backpack. Mariam had been surviving on the streets since her parents' demise 2 years ago, dodging trouble and snatching what she could to eat. But today, she aimed bigger. As people hustled through the market, Mariam spotted her target, a well-dressed man with a thick black leather briefcase. He walked with purpose, his shoes polished to perfection. "That bag has to be full of money," she thought. Her heart raced as she tailed him, slipping through the crowd like a shadow. Mariam waited for the perfect moment, then made her move. Mariam dashed forward, her hand brushing against the briefcase handle, but just as she grasped it, the man turned sharply. "Ah!" he exclaimed, surprise mixed with anger in his eyes. Mariam yanked the bag and ran, weaving through the crowded market. The man gave chase, shouting, "Thief! Thief!" The word echoed around her as vendors turned to watch the scene unfold. She stumbled around the corner into a quiet alley. Her breath was ragged, her pulse racing. She clutched the case tightly and slid to the ground behind a stack of crates. Inside, Mariam could hear his footsteps approaching. Her heart pounded like a drum in her chest. She needed to escape unnoticed, or she'd be done for. Suddenly, the footsteps stopped. Mariam peered around the crates, expecting the man, or perhaps the police. Instead, the man was alone, catching his breath. Oddly, instead of grabbing her, he reached inside his jacket. Mariam flinched, expecting a weapon, but he pulled out a folded piece of paper with her name written boldly on it. She froze, her mouth agape. "How do you know my name?" Mariam gasped, gripping the briefcase like a lifeline. He smiled, not unkindly. "Mariam, I've been looking for you." Confusion swept over her. Was this some kind of setup? Her mind raced with possibilities. "I knew your parents," he said, stepping back to give her space. Mariam lowered the case slightly. She studied his face, trying to remember. Had she seen him before? Maybe, back when life was ordinary. "I'm Pastor Tunda," he continued. "Your father and I, we were friends." Her throat tightened. She hadn't heard anyone speak about her father with such familiarity in a long time. "What do you want?" Mariam snapped, her defensive shell rising. Pastor Tunde crouched down to her level, eyes gentle. "I want to help you." Mariam eyed him warily. Help was a rare commodity, often coming with strings attached. Life had taught her that much. "Why should I trust you?" she retorted, gripping the briefcase tighter. His answer was unexpected. "Because your father asked me to." The weight of his words struck her deeply. Mariam blinked, her vision blurring as memories of her father surfaced. Warmth, laughter, the stories he told on long nights. But those were gone, like a mirage vanishing with the wind. "Mariam, please," Pastor Tunde said softly, extending the letter to her. "Just read this." She hesitated, then slowly reached out and took the paper, her fingers brushing against the edge. Mariam unfolded it, her heart yearning for even a fragment of her past life. As her eyes scanned the handwriting, a lump formed in her throat. Her father's words, written long ago, told her everything she had missed. Love, guidance, and a plea for her to find her way back. Tears streamed down her face. The briefcase forgotten beside her, Mariam bent over the letter, feeling her father's presence in every word. "I'm sorry," Pastor Tunde said, breaking her silent reverie. "I'm late to fulfill my promise." Mariam raised her head, meeting his gaze. "What promise?" "To take care of you," he replied, his voice steady and sincere. Mariam sat, the harshness of the alley contrasting with the sudden warmth in her heart. She had been alone for so long, fighting against the world. But now, something shifted. "Are you ready to come with me?" Pastor Tunde asked, his hand outstretched once more. She breathed deeply, torn between trust and doubt, reality and the hope she thought she'd lost forever. As they walked out of the alley, Mariam's grip tightened around Pastor Tunde's hand. The market sounds had faded, replaced by an unexpected quiet within her heart. Her journey was far from over, challenges still lay ahead. But now, for the first time in years, Mariam felt something more than fleeting solace. She felt hope. Far behind them, unnoticed in the bustling market crowd, a pair of eyes watched their departure keenly. a subtle shift in the shadows, a hint of something darker yet to come. Miriam's return to trust might unravel paths she never imagined, spinning her life into the kind of conspiracy that tests faith and fervor alike. As Miriam and Pastor Tunde walked away from the market, an uneasy feeling crept over her. The overwhelming presence of the past threatened to consume the fragile new hope she had clutched onto. Glancing back, Miriam thought she saw the same shadowy figure that had watched them earlier. She shook it off as paranoia and focused on the unknown path ahead. They arrived at Pastor Tunde's small, modest home, a place bathed in a warmth that starkly opposed Miriam's street-hardened life. She hesitated at the threshold, memories of safety feeling both alien and alluring. Tunde observed her wariness, understanding the battle waging within. "You're safe here, Miriam," he reassured softly, opening the door wider, inviting her into a semblance of security she hadn't known in years. Later that evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Miriam sat at the wooden kitchen table, chewing slowly as Tunde prepared tea. The quiet comfort of shared meals was something she had forgotten. Yet even as her stomach filled, her mind was far from settled. "Why now, Pastor? Why after all this time?" she asked, breaking the silence with the question that had been gnawing at her. Their conversation was interrupted by a sharp knock on the door. Miriam froze, her instincts screaming danger. Tunde noticed her shift and calmly opened the door. Standing there was a face from the past, Adewale, a former associate of her father whose intentions were never pure. "Adewale," Tunde acknowledged cautiously. What brings you here?" "I came to warn you both," Adewale replied, eyes darting nervously. "People heard about Miriam. There are those who believe she knows where her father hid certain valuables." Adewale's presence and words brought an avalanche of anxiety crashing down on Miriam. The twisted notion of her father's enemies believing she held secrets that didn't even exist terrified her. She felt an old weight settling on her chest. "I don't know anything," she muttered, voice strained with despair. The evening stretched on, voices hushed under the blanket of approaching night. Miriam paced the living room. Memories of whispered conversations between her parents flickered like disjointed fragments, but none granted her the clarity Adewale's sinister presence mandated. "God will lead us through this," Tunde said, his voice a steady anchor amid swirling fear. "He has not brought us this far to leave us now." In the quiet that followed, Miriam joined him reluctantly. Words she hadn't uttered since childhood felt foreign yet familiar as they formed in her mouth. As they prayed, a sense of inexplicable calm began to weave through her turbulent heart, challenging the chaos she expected as her only shield. A sudden thud against the window jerked them from their moment. They turned, hearts pounding, and saw a figure duck back into the shadows. The threat was real. Fear clawed at Miriam's resolve. Her mind jumped to action, thoughts crackling with the instinct to run, to return to the tangibility of streets and solitude. Yet something kept her grounded, a tether of faith she'd thought long severed. "Tunde, I should leave," she said, panic lacing her words. "They won't stop coming." Miriam sat, head in hands, confession mingling with silent tears. "I just wanted revenge on a world that took everything from me, but it's never enough, is it?" Her voice was raw, an open wound. The next day dawned with an unexpected clarity. Though danger loomed, so did the possibility of choosing a different path. Miriam awoke to find Tunde waiting, his Bible resting open at a verse marked by a simple ribbon. He gestured for her to sit with him. "John 14:27, he read, voice even. "Peace I leave with you. My peace I give you. I do not give to you as the world gives. Do not let your hearts be troubled, and do not be afraid." With a decision planted in her heart, Miriam knew what she needed to do. She couldn't change the past, nor erase the hurt, but she could choose not to perpetuate its cycle any longer. Looking back at Tunde, she felt a lightness that defied the dismal weight she carried alone. As the days passed, Miriam found herself building connections within the community, a community she'd long viewed with suspicion. She faced Adewale once more, this time not as an antagonist or a relic of a bitter past, but as someone she could see with new eyes, guided by grace, and the hope that redemption would ripple outward. In the quiet moments between, alone and yet not, Miriam wrote in her notebook. Words of longing, peace, and a life turning away from revenge. She placed the open Bible on her simple night table, its pages angling towards new lessons learned and chapters waiting to be written. Peace knocked at her heart, a promise demanded presence. Her journey, fraught and unfiltered, bore testimony not to revenge but to transformation, an unfolding of grace where anger once thrived.
Thank you so much for listening to this intriguing story. I hope it touched you or taught you something. For more stories like this, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the page. And guys, if you'd like to see a part 2, or you have thoughts on what happened, let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. See you in the next story.